Okay, so we're diving deep into some listener-submitted info today. And, this is some really fascinating stuff surrounding Nnamdi Kanu
Yeah.
and the leader of IPOB. And specifically, we're looking at the changes
Right.
to his legal team
Yes.
and also the court where his case will be heard going forward.
Exactly.
And we want to try to understand like what these changes might mean.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot to unpack here. And, these are two key developments that could really shift the entire trajectory of this case. So let's dive in.
Yeah, let's get into it. The first thing that jumps out is this major change to the legal team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, We've got two really prominent figures who've been added to Kanu's defense. And I think for people who aren't super familiar with the Nigerian legal scene, it might be helpful to sort of just lay out like who these people are and what it means that they're now involved.
Right. So we have Kanu Agabi, who is a former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. So that's a huge, that's a huge position.
Hmm.
And then we also have Uchenna Njoku, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria. And that's, a title that really signifies, you're at the top, you're one of the
Top tier lawyer.
top tier lawyers in the country.
It's pretty significant.
It's a really big deal. And so to have both of those individuals join Kanu's defense team really brings a lot of weight and experience and, just a whole other level of, expertise to this case.
It's interesting, too, because they're joining this existing team that's already, been working on the case. Led by Aloy Ejimakaor.
Mm-hmm.
But, this team also includes Maxwell, Opara, and Nnaemeka Ejiofor.
Right.
So it's not like they're completely replacing everyone. It's more like this, this huge bolstering of legal power.
Yeah, it's a really interesting move, right? Because you're not scrapping what you had, you're adding to it. And so it makes you think about like, okay, what kind of strategy is at play here?
Yeah, what are they going for?
Because, maybe they felt like, okay, we need some additional firepower.
Yeah, we need to really,
We need to shore up certain areas or bring in certain expertise. And I think, when you look at the backgrounds of these individuals, like Agabi being a former attorney general, it makes you wonder, okay, are they looking at challenging the prosecution's case on a more fundamental level?
Right. Are they going to play some, political?
Yeah. Are they looking at, maybe even avenues for political resolution?
Oh, interesting.
With Njoku, being a SAN, he's got exceptional courtroom advocacy skills.
Right.
He knows procedure like the back of his hand.
That's got to give Kanu a lot more confidence.
I would think so. Having that level of expertise behind you, you've got to be feeling a bit more, reassured.
Yeah, the information we received also mentioned that the Kanu is, pretty hopeful about this upcoming court appearance this Friday. So
right.
This must play a role in that, right?
I think it has, just knowing that you've got this dream team essentially behind you must make a difference.
Okay, so now let's talk about the other big change here, which is the change of venue in the judge.
Right.
The case has been moved from Justice Binta Nyako to Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court 7 in Abuja.
That's right.
So can you kind of walk us through like what happened there and why this is such a big deal?
Sure. So the transfer came about after Nnamdi Kanu accused Justice Nyako of bias. And then following those accusations, Justice Nyako decided to recuse herself from the case and return the case file to the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, who is John Soho.
And so Soho had to basically reassign it.
Right. He had to decide, okay, where does this case go next? Who's going to take it over?
Which is really interesting because initially both the prosecution and the defense had actually submitted applications asking for the case to be transferred.
Mm-hmm.
But the chief judge actually denied both of those applications.
Did.
So something must have changed. Like, what do we know about why he eventually decided to reassign the case to Justice Omotosho?
So the information we have suggests that a letter written by Kanu's lawyer, Aloy Ejimakaor, to the Chief Justice of Nigeria might have been influential in the Chief Judge's decision to transfer the case.
Interesting. So that's even like a higher level of the judiciary?
Right, going above the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court to the Chief Justice of Nigeria. And, we don't know all the details of what was in that letter, but it seems like it was enough to make the Chief Judge reconsider.
It makes you wonder what kind of...
what kind of arguments?
What kind of pressure or, like what was in that letter that made him change his mind? Because initially he was pretty firm on like, no, this case is staying put.
Right. Yeah, he was like, nope, we're not moving this, we're not transferring this, and then something clearly shifted.
Okay. So to kind of summarize all this, we've got this like supercharging of Nnamdi Kanu's legal team with these two really heavy hitters coming in. And then on top of that, we have this, pretty dramatic change of venue and a new judge taking over.
Exactly. And, I think it's important to emphasize that these aren't just like minor procedural things. This is a big shakeup
Yeah.
in the legal landscape of this case.
So I think for anyone listening, who's following this story, it's worth thinking about, like, what are the potential ripple effects of all this?
Definitely.
How might these super experienced lawyers reshape the arguments and the strategies that are being presented? And how might this new judge, bring a totally different dynamic to the courtroom?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got to think, with Agabi's background as Attorney General, could he bring in some, political angles or arguments that weren't there before?
Right.
And with Njoku's expertise in courtroom procedure, could they be planning
Some
some
strategic.
really strategic maneuvers that we haven't seen yet? And then with a new judge, it's a completely fresh slate.
Yeah, who knows what his approach will be?
Exactly. And, Justice Nyako had been involved with this case for a while, so there was a lot of history there.
Yeah, a lot of baggage.
Yeah, so now it's like, okay, we're starting fresh, and so it's a whole new chapter in this legal saga.
Yeah, it is. It'll be fascinating to see how it plays out.
Absolutely.
It really makes you think about, like, the power dynamics within the judicial system and how, certain actions or communications can really influence the course of justice.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, a lot to think about for our listeners out there. Keep an eye on this one because it's definitely going to be an interesting ride.
It will, for sure.
All right, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
My pleasure.